Hello everyone, welcome back to the Auto Guide YouTube channel and good morning. I am your host Chase Bierenkoven and this is the 2024 Infiniti QX50 and it's a toaster. Now, you might be wondering what that means. It's a term I kind of like to use occasionally. I'm not sure where I picked it up that refers to cars that are appliances. They're things that get you from A to B. They're transportation. They do a job and they must do it well and they must be worth your money. There's also, of course, luxury appliances, luxury toasters. There's toasters with apps, there's toasters that connect to the Wi-Fi network and sell all your data to Jeff Bezos, and, well, this is the latter, though. I'm pretty sure it doesn't sell your data. This is a luxury toaster, and today we're going to find out just how well it stacks up against its other luxury toaster competition, its Japanese competition, and more importantly, its far, far pricier German competition from the likes of Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. So, stay tuned, and let's find out together. So aesthetically, I think that this is a pretty great shape. I actually really like the way that a lot of Infiniti products look. I think that this is a pretty low-key look, especially in this gray paint, the name of which I'm not recalling. It's probably Stone Gray Atlas Metallic or something. It's got some nice lights. I like these wheels. Let's come around to the other side so I can show you these wheels. I think they look pretty solid. Yeah, they've got a very interesting spoke design to them that I kind of like. Now, moving down the side, I think that this is probably the best angle on the car. It has a really interesting sort of greenhouse for a crossover. It's got this little kink thing back here over the rear window that's kind of cool. It feels a little bit out of place because the rest of the design is so smooth and unobtrusive, but I like it. It's a little sauce on top. In back, it's kind of the same story. Very smooth, very low-key, understated, yeah? Again, there's just a little bit of flash here with this bar that's probably not metal. This plastic bar that looks like metal. It's not terrible. This is the all-wheel drive model, obviously, if you hadn't guessed from the all-wheel drive badging. And we'll go ahead and get into more of the hard specs in just a moment, but for now, take in the rest of the design, develop some opinions, decide for yourself. Design is all subjective, right? Okay, let's hop inside and see what's up. On the interior, this is a luxury crossover after all, and it must be both a good toaster and luxurious. And starting with toaster category, there's some good storage here, right? Door pocket, room for even bigger water bottle than this, which is a pretty good sized water bottle. The material on the door panel is very nice. This split theme here carries over to the rest of the interior, which we'll talk about in a moment, but there's some memory seating, and there's also this is real metal. Yeah, fancy schmancy. Bose, no highs, no lows, must be Bose, right? We'll talk about the sound system quality momentarily, but I want to show you something that I haven't seen in forever. Physical gauges. Isn't that crazy? That needle moves because there is a gear that's moving it. That I haven't seen in God knows how long. Anyways, there's a little screen in the middle where you can go through some of the safety menus and things like that. Tire pressure, fuel economy, etc. Speaking of, getting 24.2, kind of disappointing. This is also the all-wheel drive model, which, you know, so you're gonna have to pro-con that out for yourself. Anyways, let's move on to the most disappointing aspect of the interior. This dual screen setup. It's not so good. I don't like it. It's not great. For starters, I have to do the 2008 thing. I mean, this feels like Bush era. It's really, really pretty poor. Hopefully it's something that gets fixed. Thankfully, there is CarPlay, Android Auto, etc. You can just use the cable. There's also a wireless charger down here. Oh, there goes the key. Anyways, let's talk about the center console while we're down here. This is how you go through gears. So you just kind of pinch it and do that. Drive modes here, and then there's parking brake, auto hold. This is very important. The auto hold, this stays on. This stays on while you are getting in and out of the car. If you restart the car, the auto hold stays on. Toyota doesn't do this. Nobody does this. Why? Anyways, let's move on. Cup holders. You can put cups in them. They're pretty useful. Speaking of storage in the center console, though, there's some weirdness going on here. I'm sure this is to make room for some sort of mechanical piece, but there's this humpy lumpy thing here, and I don't really know why, because then as you can see, this gets kind of awkward. It's only about a sunglass wide. It's kind of weird, but it's lined with some sort of velour material, which is kind of nice. Let's talk materials, because that is definitely a highlight. You can see there's this split material theme that runs the length of the dash and onto the door cards. It's also on the center console, as you notice, there's the suede and the cream leather with the nice stitching. The split theme continues on these seats, which look super, super, super nice. This is brown leather of some variety here as an accent. These are ventilated seats as well. You can come in here. There's 3 levels for heat and ventilation, which is very nice. Also want to look back to climate controls. Hey, look, they're physical. Thank God. Anyways, that is pretty much it for the interior in here. This is the nicest interior you can get in this car, and it definitely feels worth the price point. But, as I have said, what doesn't is this extremely dated infotainment system. If they were to update this and keep the physical climate controls, I'd be quite happy. But nevertheless, let's move in back, see what that's like. Hi. Before we get to what it's like back here, I did forget to address something up front. 2 things, really. There's a very nice skylight, right? It opens at the front. It's quite nice. It adds a little bit of luxury ambiance. There's also a suede headliner, again, contributing to the luxury ambiance. The most important thing back here, however, now that we're done with that, is that the materials quality does not drop off. All of the things that made the front passenger space a nice place to look at and a nice place to sit, make it a nice place to look at and a nice place to sit back here. That means that there's this nice cream-colored quilted leather, which I'm not a big fan of white leather. Hopefully you can get something else. There's the blue contrasting Alcantara stuff, that nice wood grain, the chrome accents, the metal speaker vents, the works. It's all back here, and that's very nice. There's also window shades. Yeah. You used to be able to, oops, can I get it? How long is it gonna take me to get? There we go. You used to be able to only get these in an S-Class, and now look, Infiniti has got window shades. Anyways, there are some other things worth noting back here. There's climate control, so you have single zone rear climate control, and there are heated seats. It's just the outboard ones. Poor passenger sitting in the middle doesn't get heated seats, but that's quite all right. Their seat turns into an armrest, which I guess is kind of neat. There are some cup holders. There's a little spot for pens or, I don't know, very small children. I don't really know what you put back there, or in here rather, but it's a very nice place to be. Let's talk room, of which there is quite a lot. Let me sit up straight. Reference, I'm 5'8". Yeah, I know, I'm kind of disappointed too. I'm 5'8", I have plenty of room. I'm sitting behind myself currently, and it's worth noting that as you get in and out of the Infiniti, the seat moves fore and aft to give you more room to get out, and this is in the rearward exit position, and I still have all of this knee room. The floor of it's a little narrow, so I can't quite stick my feet under here, but that's okay, because I have plenty of headroom. Even with the sunroof, which generally detracts from headroom, I have lots of space back here. It's very comfortable. I feel like I could sit back here and relax on a long drive. I don't have a lot to entertain me other than my own thoughts, and nobody likes being left alone with those, but it's still a very, very nice place to be. All right, let's talk cargo. I'm gonna open it first. It beeps at you, and it's a little slow, but aren't all of these a little slow? Anyways, up here, there are 2 controls. This is just to close the thing, and then this is to lock all the doors in the trunk and walk away as it closes, right? In here, we have some objects for scale. We've got a backpack, and another backpack, and an Amazon box, because I have to go to the post office later. There's also a little bit of underfloor storage here. You just lift this up and, I didn't know there was anything in here. Let's find out what this is. You guys want to find out with me? Let's find out what this is. A tow hitch, because I'm sure that so many QX50 owners will be towing. Anyways, it's actually a lot of underfloor storage, so do with that what you will. You can, I don't know, put some ice in there and throw some beer in. I don't know. Anyways, you can let the seats down here, right? Either side, fore and aft. There's also supposed to be a cargo cover, which I guess is optional and not included in this one. And then there's some cargo hooks, and that's it for the cargo space. By the way, if you want the hard number, this is 31.4 cubic feet of cargo space, which is very good considering the size of this vehicle. So my big gripe with the Infiniti QX50 is the way that it drives. The throttle and the engine and the CVT automatic transmission, they all combine into this really weird experience that's kind of frustrating. I feel like if I hit the gas, I don't get the response I want. And so then I tip the throttle in more and I get way too much. And so you kind of end up driving like this all the time, like a light switch, on, off, on, off, on, off. And that's how the boost for the turbo feels, the boost coming out of the turbo. It feels really on and off. It feels kind of strange and almost ponderous to a degree. The same can be said for the steering. There's just a lot of vagueness, a lot of looseness in this car. That's kind of a positive when it comes to the ride, though. The ride, I think, is pretty supple most of the time. You're not going to suffer driving this car on broken pavement. However, if you do get it on broken pavement, some of the larger impacts that are felt are, boy, are they larger impacts that are felt. It can feel a little over stiff sometimes over bad pavement. I could just be nitpicking though. What I do like about the driving experience, though it goes nowhere near redeeming this thing, is the fact that this is a really quiet interior. At pretty much any speed, this car is extremely quiet. Even up to 80, 85 miles an hour, there's just not a lot of road noise in here, which is really nice because, like I've said, this is a luxury toaster. Its job is to commute. Its job is to get you around the city without making a ton of noise, without being obtrusive. It kind of fails at that because of how weird the relationship between the engine, the transmission, and the throttle are, but there's still some redemption to be found in the more luxurious aspects of this. The interior quality, the fact that the ride is pretty composed despite some of its drawbacks. It's just not enough to redeem the driving experience as a whole. Let's talk about the money. MSRP for this autograph trim, which gets you the upgraded sound system, the leather, the sunroofs, the blah, 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 that's $57,900. However, because of some options that you really don't need, like illuminated kick plates, this one costs $61,610 with $1,195 of destination. That's cheaper than competition like the Acura RDX and the Mercedes GLC, but of course, there's that infotainment system to contend with and some of those driving impressions. The fact that the engine is not so responsive, the weirdness in the throttle programming and the transmission, those things. So that's the money, that's the trade-off. There we go. So what's under the hood? Well, a piece of plastic, but behind that piece of plastic, under there somewhere, is a 2-liter turbocharged Nissan engine. It makes 268 horsepower and 280 pounds-feet of torque. It's paired to a continuously variable automatic transmission, and all-wheel drive is standard, which is important because the lineup for its $41-ish thousand starting price, you only get front-wheel drive. So that's important to keep in mind if you live in a 4-season climate or just want the added peace of mind that all-wheel drive brings. Let's talk about the competition. Let's talk about the German alternative, the Mercedes-Benz GLC. Now, unlike the Infiniti, oopsies, the GLC is more expensive. It's $47,450 to start. You can spend up to about $65,000 before options. You're probably kissing $70,000 at the end of it. It's powered by a 4-cylinder engine too, but Mercedes has a mild hybrid in there, spinning the rear wheels. Now, it makes 255 horsepower and 295 pounds-feet of torque. So a little less horsepower, but a little bit more torque. I would wager that the Mercedes side-by-side feels just a hair more snappy. And that's also kind of the caveat with the Infiniti here. The drive experience is where this car really falls apart. The old infotainment is kind of offset by Android Auto compatibility, CarPlay compatibility. But the driving experience is what really sets the Germans apart. And if you care about that, that's something to keep in mind. Okay, let's talk about the other Japanese alternative, the Acura RDX, which I think is an interesting alternative because for just a smidge more money, $44,350, you get all-wheel drive as standard. And more importantly, you also have a slightly more powerful engine, making 272 horsepower and 280 pounds-feet of torque. So that's definitely something worth considering if you'd like a slightly more sporty driving experience, which the Acura definitely delivers on. It also has a slightly nicer sound system, and I may on certain days prefer the Acura infotainment. Despite some of its drawbacks, it feels slightly more modern than the one in the Infiniti. And again, the letdown here for the Infiniti is its driving experience, which certainly does not stack up to the competition. So where does that leave the QX50? Well, if I'm honest, it leaves it in kind of a weird place. There's a lot to like, but there's also some things that I really can't let go of, like the driving experience, how weird the throttle mapping is, some of the looseness. But there's also a really nice interior. There's great cargo space, there's solid visibility, the quality of the interior, the fact that it's visually interesting is so nice, and the physical controls. But the fact remains, the driving experience provided by the competition is just better. It's just better. The GLC is a world apart, and so is the Acura with its standard all-wheel drive and more powerful engine. And so I really cannot say that I would go out and buy this particular luxury toaster. If Infiniti is able to fix some of these problems, I could let go of a little bit less power and have it be cheaper and have it not have standard all-wheel drive. But for right now, there are simply better alternatives out there. And so that's it. I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you for liking and subscribing. If you haven't done that, please do it already. It helps us so much. That's the YouTube world, that's how that stuff works, and it really helps us out. It helps me keep hosting, it helps us keep testing cars, which we love to do so much. So with that in mind, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.